For the better part of about 10 minutes trying to get on this live. I had everything set up perfectly. I'll just go back in and fill in the details. This is part of my Countdown to Samhain series where I am, well, we're doing just that. We're counting down to Samhain. So we're going to be talking about a lot of different subjects. So I'm trying to regroup because that's what life is, regrouping, right? This was not quite the location I was trying to be in. Let me fix my camera. There we go. So it's not shaking. This isn't quite where I was trying to be, but it looks like this is where I'm going to be, and this is what it's going to be. So welcome. I'm Mika. This is Leap Taken. Welcome. Here at Leap Taken, I talk all things craft related, witchcraft related. I can't even talk. Law of attraction, manifesting, esoteric, and everything else between. 10 minutes trying to get this thing together. All I did was hit go live. I had it scheduled. YouTube said, we have other plans. We're not going to let you go live. We're going to harass you and make you feel like you're going freaking bananas. So that's okay. I can regroup. I don't even fully comprehend what's happening right now, but thank you if you are joining, which I don't see anybody joining because I've confused people half to death. I know, thank you, Insky. I'm like, is someone here? Will you find me? Let's all take a deep breath. When you have everything set and you actually take the time to do things, it's rather frustrating that I'm not like tech. I don't have any issues with technology. Love the look. Thank you, November Eve. I don't have any issues with technology. I don't have any issues navigating. Clearly, I've done this before. I've navigated. I don't. It just it said try again. So I was trying to do it from my computer. So I said, well, let me try from the phone and see if that makes a difference. And obviously it does. So here we go. That's what do I have notes ready to go? Yes, but we're not. If you guys see me looking over to the side, I'm looking at my notes because it's easier to look at the screen, but I might look down. I don't know. Welcome to Countdown to Samhain. Let me get back in the mode. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about honoring ancestors, the ancestors. I'll be breaking down why, the why. Why is this such a powerful time for us to connect with our ancestors, to connect with our lineage, our bloodline? And I'm going to just jump into a tangent mode right now since everything's all over the place. When I say bloodline and ancestors, I truly believe, okay, so there's two schools of thought about this. When we say the ancestors, I mean, any blood is bloodline, right? So just because you can't prove a direct tie to someone doesn't mean that, I mean, we're all technically related in some sort of way. I think about a story of my grandmother's friend, one of her dear friends from years ago. My grandmother is, as she would say, God willing, turning 90 next month. So I was a little girl, and her girlfriend, Miss Joan. I remember she wore a beehive. I think I told her like the beehive hairdo. Now, this would have been in the 80s. People weren't wearing beehive hairdo. Like, you might did French roll, but she wasn't doing no French roll. She was doing like with the hairspray and all that. And she had the laugh, like, I liked her. Oh, I like that woman so much. Anyway, she came to me with the help of a psychic medium at the time. She came to me and she delivered messages, and we were reaching out to ancestors. But she came to me. So I always kind of considered her one of my ancestors, even though from my knowledge, we're not related at all. She's not a blood relative, but she was looking out for me like she was. So I consider her an ancestor. I think that's where the term beloved dead comes in. Some people will say, well, that was a spirit and just leave it at that. But it was more than that. It felt more than that. It does. She was like an auntie. When you grow up in close communities, like I did, people your mom's friends is your aunt. You might not even know it. Do you know how many people they become adults and they finally realize your mom's best girlfriend is actually not your aunt? She's your mom's friend, but because everybody's so close and the kids together, like, and out of respect, we, call them auntie or aunt so and so. But so imagine if you never really processed. I mean, I guess it's possible you could not have really processed it and not really thought about it. And we're not even going to talk about the switcheroo situation that happens in some families where you thought so and so was your sister and they're not. And people who lied about adoptions and things like that. But you could, they could, you may never know they're not actually your blood relative, but you'll honor them and, put them on your altar and treat them as an ancestor. So I don't know. I think it's up to interpretation. Literally, my mom's best friend is my aunt, and I didn't learn until later in life. Exactly. A lot of kids have no idea who's who, what's what, because we just, it's like out of respect, you say that's Aunt so and so. Oh, that's especially, I'm coming as my grandmother's friend. So I digress when I say blood. So I'm saying maybe not just blood. So if you're like me and you kind of have people that have been in your life where you can't prove that there's any blood relation, but there's something there, that's what I mean. They're part of the ancestors that I'm talking about as well. But I'll be breaking down again why this is a powerful time to work with ancestors. I'll be giving some ideas on the how you can do it sort of in your own way, and I'll share a little bit about me as well, what I would do, what I've been doing. Um, so if you're new to ancestor veneration, there's something here for you. If you've been doing ancestor veneration, specifically around this time or in general, you could still get some solid information from this video as well. Now that the video has started. Moving on. What a day. All right. So I want to talk about the why we honor ancestors at Samhain. So again, Samhain marks the end of the harvest, the last harvest, some people say. Also, it welcomes in the dark half of the year. Samhain itself is actually a Celtic holiday. It's a Celtic New Year. Some people I call it the Witch's New Year. I'm one of those witches who say that, but it's actually a Celtic holiday. Now, we can find roots and all that in different places, but it is a Celtic holiday. Some people are really bothered by that. I noticed within our community, in the pagan community, some people don't, for some reason, it's used almost like, I guess if you're not Celtic or if you're, I don't know, I've sensed a tone over the years. Some people, when you say that, it's like, oh, like that makes it less than, or something that me, because I'm in America, maybe I shouldn't connect to, or something like that. And I just don't, that's ridiculous. Don't listen to that. um, this is a big world out here and we're all connected, and I'm not appropriating Samhain, I'm celebrating it, but I put my own spin on it. I think like most of us do, because we're not Celtic, we're not there, we're not in this other place, it's not in those times. So it's a modernized approach. We're modern people, we're going to do things a little differently, right? All right. So it's also a time when the veil is between the physical world and the spiritual realm is at its thinnest. It's kind of one of the reasons the why. Because it makes it the perfect time to connect with our ancestors. They're more accessible during this period. So it's not that, and I'll talk about a little bit more in just a second, it's not that it's not possible any other time, but we all have, I think, a little witchy in us. I think everybody has a little bit of witch in them. Let me just start there. And that means I think we all, as humans, have the ability to connect psychically. I think that we can hear as well, or sense, using one of the clairs, the spirit realm. Some are stronger in certain aspects, right? Is that fair to say? So some people are stronger, but so if I wasn't very strong in any of the clairs, I was kind of very low level for a host of reasons. I could have something, brain chemistry, that kind of just throws things off for me, and I'm taking medication. So I'm always going to kind of struggle in that department. So this time of year for someone, like if that was me, this time of year, it kind of makes it a little bit easier to connect. So I'm a practicing witch, or I want to do ancestor veneration. And I want to, like, it felt very one-sided most of the time, but around when the time of the veil thinning, maybe I have a little bit more connection. Maybe it's not one side. It's not just me offering and talking, and I'm not really necessarily sensing anything back. Now, a lot of people like that, they might sense things. You'll notice, like, your pets in your house, in your home, all of a sudden, I wouldn't say they're acting strangely, just, they're kind of paying it, like, you see them just kind of looking off into something, or staring at a wall, or, things like that, or their habits kind of switch up a little bit, but there's nothing health related. Kids, small kids, like toddlers, babies, things like that, little kids. Also, you'll look over and they'll just be looking at a certain space, or they seem to be laughing into no stimuli, just kind of into nothing. But I think there is something, and I think that they're very sensitive to these things most times year round, especially with pets and small children. But right now, especially older folks, especially those old, like I talked about my grandmother, prime example. She has memory loss issues. So, this is just a daily issue with her at times. But right now, her connection, a lot of, okay, if you're dealing with an older person with memory loss issues, they tend to talk about the past a lot anyway, but it gets a little different around this time of year. Like, with precision, she can pull things up from the past, or you'll think she's confused because she'll say something like, "Oh, I talked to so and so." Well, that person's been dead for a while. So when did you talk to them? And you're like, maybe she's got her memories mixed up. And it's easy to think that, but there's a little something more. She probably really did talk to him through the dream, in her dreams or something like that. Or she just knows this conversation took place. I don't necessarily dismiss it as, oh, that's just part of the dementia, or, Alzheimer's or whatever, especially around this time of year. The details are a little too uncanny for me to just dismiss that. Cultural traditions of ancestor worship. So I kind of alluded to this. So there's a lot of different cultures around the world that honor their ancestors. So we have Dia de los Muertos. Yeah, Spanish is not my. Would you believe me if I told you I've taken classes, I've studied, I live near Miami, and I still struggle. Anyway, in Mexico is one of the examples. Various African traditions, traditional spiritual systems do ancestor veneration. That is an ongoing thing. You're probably familiar with that. And for those of us who practice witchcraft, right? This is a time, I'm not saying we normally don't do it, but I just want to reiterate, this is a perfect opportunity to recognize those who came before us, also sacrifices, those who sacrifice for us, their lives for our existence today. This is especially as people who call themselves witch. Do you know how awesome it is that we get to do that? I mean, especially in the climate that we're in, if you're in this country. I worry if we're going to be able to just be out and out proud saying, oh, I'm a witch, and that's going to be safe because of just the way things have been going. It does concern me. So this is a perfect opportunity around this time to really sit back. It doesn't have to be a big ritual or big thing, but seriously, just give a little bit of gratitude, a little bit of thanks to the ancestors for this. Oh, my eyes are red today. I'm sorry, I'm looking and I was like, girl, what's going on? I was putting on mascara and I got a little too close. I'm going to be all right. Honoring your ancestors isn't just about the past, though. It's an opportunity to draw strength and wisdom from your lineage. So, because I also think about the Witch's New Year portion of this time, when I think about working with my ancestors, I'm petitioning them for help in the here and now. It's not just about a solemn practice. It can be, but it's not like that for me. I like to petition them. I like to seek further guidance if it's a situation in the past, but in my past life, and I want some clarity on. I also see it that way, more about that with healing. But I don't just see it as just kind of harping, kind of sticking to the past in their life and how much I miss them and their death and all that. I don't want to do that in my practice. Maybe if it was fresh, I probably would take that route with around this time of year. If I lost someone who was very close to me, and this is the first Samhain that I'm experiencing, yeah, I probably would be more in the solemn situation, but I wouldn't want to stay that way. I actually had a conversation with my mother recently about this, and we talked about it. And she said, in her time, when she goes, I said, well, I didn't think you would want me to be sad all the time. I mean, you would want me to be sad because, yeah. But I said, I never got the feeling that you want me to just sit here and just be like sad all the time and, not living my life because I'm just caught up in the emotions. And she said, no, no, I don't want. She said, I don't want people doing that. I don't want anybody doing that. I mean, I mean, yeah, be sad, you cry and all that, but I don't want you to be like that all the time. And I said, for me, when I think of us, like I was talking, my mom is not a practicing witch, by the way, but I just say what I want. I said with the upcoming Samhain upcoming, I said it just got me thinking uh, about that, and a host of different reasons because of the people in my life. And I said I would want to throw you a party or in your honor. And I said, although even I said I'm talking to my mother and I say to her, I can almost know that like in this future world, your spirit will be saying, why do I have to die for you to finally throw me a party? My mom laughed really hard about that. It's an ongoing thing. Her birthday is on Christmas Day. She never feels celebrated for her birthday because she has to share it with that other figure. So it never felt special. And then I had to correct her because I actually did throw her a party one year. She came to visit when we lived in Florida, and we did make a fuss about her birthday. So, I'm redeemed. I'm redeemed. But as a kid, I literally forget. Christmas morning, it went out my head. I just saw the gifts, and my grandmother, when she had the memories, when her mind was sharp, she would call first thing in the morning, and I would say, "Oh, I'm like so happy because it's Christmas morning," and she's like, "Did you tell your mom happy birthday?" And I'd be like, "Oh, happy birthday!" This was ongoing when I was a little kid. I feel bad about that. I mean, I made up when I got older. I stopped being so, I mean, your kids are selfish. Okay, so let's talk about now how to honor ancestors at Samhain. So creating an ancestor altar is probably one of the first go-tos that you can do. An ancestor altar doesn't have to be this big. I mean, you can you can make it beautiful. You can have all the offerings and fresh flowers and dried flowers and, you know, you know, a place to put offerings of food and drink and all that. Pictures. You can have multiple altars. Maybe you want this one just for this one for another branch, your father's side, your mother's side. You could combine them all. You could do whatever you want. It could be as simple as just a small space in an already working altar, and you just carve out a space with something simple as a candle and maybe some crystals, and a glass of water that you consistently, refill, refresh. That's enough. I'm on the simple side, believe it or not. I don't do a grand ancestor altar. I don't feel comfortable doing it. And until I feel otherwise, I probably won't. I'll still just keep it simple. I just like having a simple tray with some water, a vessel for water, and some sort of, I like to burn oil, so I have a little like miniature campfire pot thing. You put the tea light under it. Something I got off of Amazon. I can't remember what it's called, but anyway, like an oil burner. So I like to have that. I don't even like candles or anything like that. I just like to burn certain oil blends, and yeah, sometimes, and the candle, the tea light is the candle. That's it, and water, and maybe a picture. So, and I've recently got into adding pictures to the physical altar, and that's only because that ancestor specifically reached out to me during, and I was working through, and what is it called, Ancestor Grimoire. It's a book I talked about over a more, I think it's at least a year ago, and it takes a year to go through it. So I completed it. One of the exercises I was doing was to reach out to this ancestor. So I did. So I genuinely had that connection. So I found their picture, I printed it out, and I put it on the altar. That's it. I didn't feel the need to do anything more. For a while, I kept mine in the kitchen because I felt like my grandmother's, oh, wanted it there. Exactly. Ancestor altars, listen, you can do the grand thing and set it all up. If you're noticing you're not visiting, you really don't feel anything there, maybe start paring down a little bit, then see how you feel. Change the location. You don't have to stay in one place. It doesn't, I know you blessed it and you made it sacred. Do it again in another location, see how you feel. Um, but what you can place on again is photos of loved ones who passed away, any family heirlooms, objects that remind you of them, candles, flowers, favorite foods or drinks, and again, a glass of water. I'm a proponent on just a simple glass of water, and keep it simple. Because I kept it simple, well, I started a little grander, and then I started paring down, and then I arrived at just having a glass of water on this plate, and that's it, and my oil burner, and that's it, because that seems to do that. It does the job. It connects. And tobacco, exactly, if you want that, herbs and whatever else that makes sense. Now, the crazy part about it is most of my connection to my ancestors is in this, I like to call it the in-between space. Um, Someplace I can connect to with my third eye. I've been there when I've been in a dream, in more than one dream, and I've been there purposely. Purposely project myself there, or if I feel called. So recently, because I'm not a hypocrite, I actually do practice what I preach. So I actually did some veneration work. I felt like the cards were I pull a tarot card every day. And I kept getting the same cards over and over and over and over again. So I was like, say less. So I finally sat down and worked with them. It was sort of like a ritual. I turned it more into a ritual. Um, just sitting down and just holding space for whatever came through. And I was able to slip right into that space. It wasn't even my intention per se, but once I lit the candles and I, burned the herbs and lit the incense and did my breathing exercises, sort of like meditation style, I slipped right into that space, that in-between space. And I was able to get some messages, and I was able to already petition them because that's what they were asking. Hey, we know you want to work on these things. We can help. We're here for you. And yeah, so that was something I recently did. And I felt very good about it. Make sure to journal. You think you'll remember. You think you'll remember. But sometimes messages that you'll get in situations like that, including, let's say, on Samhain night, they might not manifest until 6 months, a year, So write it down. Write it down. Trust me. You write all that down. Then after that, I pulled out my tarot cards. And I sat down like a normal, I say normal because it's normal for me, but my normal communication style of working with ancestors. And that was a beautiful experience being able to do that. Um, And I didn't even do it at an ancestor altar. That was the point of this. I didn't do it at an altar. It's a place that I go to in the in between. It's not a physical space that I'm sitting at doing this. But for some people, I know that makes more sense. But I mean, I'm technically, I was at my working altar, but I keep my ancestor altar in the living area because I figure they should be around the living. This is my thought. Anyway, but it's also a place for offering. So if you're like me and you just kind of want a place to do offerings, I think that's good too. And maybe you don't sit there and pray at that physical location. A lot of people do approach altars that way, but it's your personal practice. You can do it however you want. I just want to let you know that not everyone does it that way, including me. I don't sit at my ancestor altar and work like that. It's more of a place I now realize I like hold physical space for offerings and things like that. Speaking of offerings, um, offerings and rituals. So offerings are a way of showing respect and gratitude to your ancestors. And again, I've already alluded to water, but things like food, drink, or symbolic items like herbs, we were talking about tobacco, coins, or even handwritten letters. You could do a simple ritual that might involve lighting a candle for each ancestor you wish to honor. You can speak their names aloud. That's a thing, by the way, speaking their names aloud and offering a few words of remembrance or gratitude. So, speaking their names, speaking about them, speaking to them out loud. Not everybody remembers to do that. I'm guilty sometimes of doing that too, kind of just like having the dialogue in my head because I'm sitting in a room and I'm alone and I typically, don't speak out loud. But I had to change that. I had to get comfortable in my practice, getting comfortable speaking out loud to these spirits that I work with. So I do now. Now, if you walk by, you're like, who's she talking to? Don't worry about it. I'm talking to my ancestors. I like to have a cup of coffee, for me and them and talk. Exactly. Whatever it is you feel comfortable with. For me, it's probably going to be a glass of wine, but I could do coffee too, a cup of tea. But I feel like my people drank like me a little bit. So even the ones I didn't know, I just feel like we drank. I don't know. It feels right. And the ones that didn't, I probably really didn't mess with them that much anyway. I don't know. I'm funny like that. But you know what? When I get to, when I'm an ancestor, I will go and get some wine. If you know it's me, get some wine and come talk to me. Girl, don't come over here with no coffee. I always speak to my ancestors out loud. We have conversations. Exactly. Sit there, have a full conversation, and be like, yeah, let me tell you. I know you saw what's happening with so and so and what's going on. Yeah, give them the tea. Spill tea with your ancestors. When you're doing an offering, develop that connection. Now, the dumb supper. This is another, we're in a how category now. How do you do this? So the dumb supper, if you didn't know, is a silent meal shared with the spirits of the dead, right? So you would set an extra plate at the table for your ancestors, and they say you're eating in silence, reflecting on their lives and your connection to them. I would not be able to do that. I'd be talking the whole time. You can even prepare foods that were meaningful to them, so something they, liked. Um, it's definitely a way to kind of invite their presence into your life and to honor their memory. I do have a shot with them sometimes. Exactly. Okay, so fun story, quick story. When I first started practicing as a Wiccan practitioner, I called myself Wiccan. I was doing very much Wiccan things. I was Wicca. I was in Wicca, but so I said, I told my family we were gonna do a dumb supper. So we did, and I remember this because it didn't work. It's like, first of all, it was a family, so no one's quiet. So that's why I said it's supposed to be silent. That didn't happen. We were talking, and I just made this place setting, and it just felt so awkward. It felt so awkward. A lot of the things that I did when I was Wiccan, I felt so, one, because it was new to me doing stuff like that. And to be honest, it was just new. Also, it felt awkward because I I was following something I read out of a book, and I had no one else that I knew who did anything like that. It's a couple people online, but I didn't know what I was doing. And it was it did not, it basically was just an empty space, and no, and everybody sat at the table, we all just ignored it. I don't think that's the point of it. So you can do a dumb supper. Maybe you won't be like me. Of course, if I was to do it now, it would be a totally different experience. But ah, I have connections to my ancestors in the spirit realm, in that dream space, more often than not. I did one once. I had a playlist. Oh, okay. Oh, you did a dumb supper. Okay. um, I have actually gotten some serious like messages that I pass on to other family members. And one dream stands out is that all of our ancestors were sitting at a table. They were all like in shadow. You could see humanoid figures, but you couldn't see who what, because it was all shadow. It was at night. It was at an outdoor table. Think like picnic table, but it extended beyond my eyes. And the family member I told about this, it was an important, and the light, there was a light just on them and the person sitting, who were alive, people who are alive, by the way, and the light was just on them. And I knew I couldn't sit at that table. The reason I know this dream was because the person that I had the dream for, the message I had to give them, they were going to give birth. If you give birth, you understand you're straddling life and death. You are very close. Life and death is both in the balance when you're delivering a baby. So that's why she was in a dream, but she was being protected. The crazy part about this, my grandmother is there. She's at the doorway. I'm standing out. I want to walk outside, but I know I can't. I know I can't join that table. But my grandmother is eating, not at the table. She's sitting in a chair at this doorway that I'm at. She's not on the inside of the house with me. She's sitting outside directly. I've always thought my grandmother had the gift to talk to the dead. I think she has always had it. It's manifested in ways a lot of times. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think a lot of times people who we classify as having mental illness, I think there's more to it than that. And we just don't have the teachers. We don't have what we used to have, where someone would just guide you through that process. Anyway, that's another conversation. um, my grandmother is on my mind a lot lately. Her birthday's next month. She is very much alive. She is not an ancestor. Gratefully, knock on fake IKEA wood. She's still with us, driving us crazy, but she's still with us. All right, so moving on. Ancestor meditation or journeying. This is sort of what I was talking about earlier. When I do my journeying, I would say like a shamanic journeying, you can use that term, don't worry about it. You can use that term, where I connect in that kind of other place, in between place. But you can do meditation like I did recently, I talked about, where I kind of just sat and waited to see what would come to me. Would I get any messages? Do I get any imagery? Is there a word? Is there a song that I start thinking about? Do I smell something that, isn't naturally occurring in my home? But you need to be able to hold space to be able to do that. And it could be just breathing. I think one of the easiest ways to approach meditation for a lot of us who it just won't shut off, like you can't just empty, is to just very intentionally concentrate on breathing. You're saying the words in your head, in through the nose, out through the mouth, hold, like you're concentrating on breathing. The instructions are in your head. That's all you're thinking about. And then you let it out. But doing that, keep doing that. Oh, I reached a goal. Anyway, exercise goal. Anyway, but yeah, do that for meditation, and then wait. So you're gonna need quiet. If you don't like quiet, have a playlist low. Be careful with songs with words. It might throw you off a little bit. Maybe just some instrumental. drums or something like that. Just keep it low volume so you're not getting too distracted. You don't want to get stimulated by these other things. But do visualization if you're comfortable with that as well. Start doing some visualizations of, like, maybe see their face if it's a specific ancestor. If you're like me and you don't think of a specific ancestor, you just think ancestors, plural, like them all. This idea of just having a picture in a person is not going to resonate with you. When people would talk about ancestor veneration, to me initially, before I really started doing it, that didn't register, because I was like, "Oh, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to sit there." Also, I'm also a believer in, when you want to call on, okay, so the person I was thinking about that had been closest to me that was deceased was an aunt. She was only like 30. By that point, I was already past her age. And also, I didn't know, I'll be honest with you, I didn't like some of the things she did in her life. They bothered me. I saw the effects of it. And, it's not speaking ill of the dead. It's just, saying what it is, right? I was bothered by some of the choices that she had made. So, because of the consequences that was left once she was gone. So, yeah, I didn't want to call on her. I didn't want to see her. I didn't want to do that. So, but I wanted the connection to ancestors. So I just didn't. And I do believe the way that I've been able to connect with them, seeing them, and I just call them shadow people, because that's how it looks like to me. They just look like humanoid outlines of just blackness, darkness, nothingness. I don't know how to explain. And that's how they appear, just these dark shadows to me. But I'm also someone who is not afraid of things that are dark or black. That's why word choice, I think, matters, because you're telling your psyche, you're telling your mind to fear the dark, fear darkness, fear anything shadow. When people hear Book of Shadows and they're not into witchcraft, they freak out about stuff like that, or do your shadow work. That scares them, because they're afraid of the darkness and what that represents. There's, they have negative sayings. What's done in the dark comes to light. And it's like, well, I hope so, because I'm intentionally doing things in the dark that I want to manifest into the light. So yeah, hopefully they do. I don't see it in a negative way. I see that in a very positive way. That's just but yeah, do meditations, do any sort of shamanic journeying. See if you can get to a plane of existence, and that might look, who knows what that looks like for you. For me, it's like a void, an empty void. Again, I'm not afraid of the dark. I've always felt comforted in this space. Um, when I'm there, I am not aware of what, like, I'm sitting here, I'm doing this, and I'm thinking, like, I can only sense there in those times. And how long I'm there has everything to do with how long they will let me stay. Sometimes it's a quick thing. Other times I'm there for a little while. I don't know, I can't really measure time, but I can sense that it's been some time. It's, but I mean, it depends on what they're trying to communicate to me, right? All right, so I want to talk about some practical tips for honoring ancestors. So again, remember, this whole practice is deeply personal to everybody. There's technically no right or wrong way. I even talked about it before. Like, who do you consider an ancestor? I mean, there's no point of arguing and saying, well, that's just not true. If it's not your blood, that's not an ancestor. Okay, well, that's true for you. I'm saying it's different for me. And you're not going to convince me otherwise, right? Just like I wouldn't convince you otherwise. Trust your intuition. That has guided me through this process of ancestor veneration. It's not like I had a lot of people to go to. The people in my family, the living folks, all of them are Christian. So ancestor veneration is just not part of the practice of Christianity, except the only ancestor veneration they mostly do is behind the Jesus figure. They wear the cross, they celebrate Easter, about when he rose. They've now created Christmas as their holiday for that. Um, and in between, they do ancestor veneration for that particular ancestors and the saints and things like that. To me, that's still ancestor veneration. Um, but they don't do it for their individual loved ones because they're not, to. It's a tricky thing in that religion with the dead. Basically, you don't have access anymore. That's the belief. You don't have access. And if you are having access, that's a demon. That's not your mom. That's not your grandma. It's a demon. So, I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything, but yeah, I'm not comfortable with that. Also, I've had people straight out tell me to my face in my family that I'm not talking to spirit, I'm not talking to ancestors, I'm talking to a demon. So there you go. I find it interesting that you find it easier to believe that it's an actual demon, and I find it hard to believe it's a demon because I don't really, the concept of demons, I think that's the fairy tale. I think that's the made up part. But anyway, I don't want to get into that. Moving on. um, if you don't know about your family history, because it's kind of back to what I was talking about, um, or if there's part of your lineage that's painful for various reasons, you can still honor the unknown ancestors uh, just by one, how you live your life to the fullest. So this is outside of just Samhain, this is in general. Live your life to the fullest. Live your life. Do the things. Get out there and live whatever that is to you. Do the things. For instance, me being here on YouTube and talking about witchcraft, me writing about it, me being in other spaces, making it very known how much I'm a witch and I really do this life. Um, is definitely something that I know makes my ancestors proud, that I get to do this and that I'm choosing to do this out loud and with no apologies. And I don't care what people think. There are people who think I'm crazy and I'm okay with that. They, you would, I think it's crazy. I think they're crazy. I think living in this box, in this world where you're so concerned about what everybody thinks all the time, and all the decisions are based on heaven and hell. I'm going to go to hell. And I feel like, I don't know, once you become a grown up, that's so weird to think like that. I do, I know. And you're like, well, why is that weird? You're a witch, you think in spirits and ancestors. Well, they think I'm weird. I'm just letting you know I think they're weird. That's why. Okay, so but yeah, you should honor them by just living your life. Gratitude and healing. So this practice is also a chance for healing. I kind of talked about that earlier. So a lot of times we talk about breaking generational curses in witchcraft. Well, people talk about it in general, but definitely in witchcraft we talk about that. And honoring our ancestors can be part of that process. Again, acknowledge the pain in your lineage. Whatever that is, acknowledge it. Give thanks for their resilience and wisdom that then passed down to you. You can also honor, okay, the Princess Diary says you can also honor ancestors of your home state, like sports, okay, stars or celebrities and ancestors of pop culture genres that resonate with you if you want to expand your practice. I actually agree with that, yes. The things, again, that's kind of, to me, all that goes back to offerings as well. The offering of your time, your attention, that can, your offering is like, I know my grandmother is a big Dallas Cowboys fan. um as an example, for someone like her, I would make a point to kind of, I'm not really into that too much, but football, but I would like maybe check in. And, if it's a game or something big or something, I might watch that in her honor or something like that. My uncle, who is deceased, actually also was one of those people as well. Where I have I'm from South Jersey, so I noticed there in my family anyway. There's like the Cowboy fans, and then there's the Eagles fans. That's a whole other thing. But yeah, that's definitely a thing. Or if they loved a certain quarterback or a coach or something like that, like just kind of like following them a little bit. Yeah, that would be a great offering of my attention and my time, especially around this time of year. Same thing if you had a deceased loved one that was really into watching their stories, those soap operas and stuff like that, and you check in, say, let me see what's going on. And that's great. You could light a candle. Maybe they did have their cup of coffee or tea when they watched, or some snacks, and you can kind of just have that moment and let them play. You don't necessarily have to be watching it, but you get what I'm saying? You can kind of just relax with that. Why is my computer making a beep noise? It's freaking me out. Anyway, I'm sitting here like, what is happening? I don't even know. Anyway, moving on. And if I keep looking here, I'm looking at notes so I can stay on point. Okay, so again, acknowledging the pain and the lineage, but give thanks for their resilience and wisdom that have passed down to you. This is also for people who, European Americans specifically, who or you have a pretty good idea your ancestors were, people who enslaved black folk at the time, indigenous African folk at the time. If you know that, or you're pretty sure, and you talk about ancestor veneration in that way, it's a murky territory maybe for you. Acknowledge your pain. Um, in their and here's the thing, I like to believe to ascend to ancestor, and this is not just like a me thing. I know that in certain traditions, African based traditions, this is a thing, to ascend to ancestor level, to become ancestor. We don't know what the process is, but we believe there is a process for the spirit to have to go through. And I think there has to be something where maybe, some people, it's a trial, it's a situation. So some ancestors, I think, if they were known for evil, or I think they get dealt with, and maybe in your lifetime you might not come across who they are. You see what I'm saying? Because they're still going through the process. But I do believe, remember, you're connected. It's the bloodline, and then the ones you consider your ancestors, but it's a connection of people you don't even know, who've already atoned and already gone through whatever the process is to be on the ancestral level at that point, and they can communicate and talk with you. So I'd like to believe that they're healed, and they've atoned, and maybe those way back don't even have anything to do with colonialism. I would reach out to them for help. And then for the ones who want to atone now that they're in their ancestral way of being, they might be willing to work with you on righting those wrongs. And, you guys can figure out what that looks like. So this is an opportunity as well to connect with that energy. All right, so let's talk about Samhain night ritual or vigil. So on Samhain night, you can light a candle and spend some time in quiet reflection. Speak out loud to your ancestors, share stories, or simply feel their presence. Again, this is a great time to ask for guidance with the witch's new year. So your vigil, your little ritual could be that simple. You're just speaking out loud, you light this candle, and then ask them for guidance and write it down. Write it down. You're not going to remember, write it down. And in situations like that, you never know what's going to come through. It could be something you never thought about. It could be a warning. It could be something that you weren't even dreaming about, and they're letting you know to prepare. Another thing is burning letters to ancestors. So let's say you want to release something, whether it's unresolved issues or a desire for connection, write a letter to your ancestors and burn it in a safe container, fire safe container. The smoke can symbolize the message being carried into the spiritual realm. So that's another way of doing that. And you can make that as grand as you want. You can write a very long letter and explain it all. Now, I know some people don't like the idea of once you create that letter, if you want to remember, I'm for copying it. Keeping a copy of the letter. And you can do that by just taking a picture on your phone, by the way, and putting it in a folder. Or you can physically copy or just write it again in your book. But I don't see anything wrong with that. I know some people don't like the idea of copying because they figure, well, the message was supposed to burn and was supposed to be read again. But I like to sometimes, not all the times, but if I wrote this incredibly long letter and I'm asking for guidance, I would like a copy. Another thing, ancestor grimoire pages. Well, I kind of touched on that. I've created an entire book for the dark half of the year, but consider adding an ancestor section to your grimoire in general. So I haven't done that again. I just created a whole other book, but this is something you could really think about because you can kind of, I like the idea of like setting up an altar in your book. So if there's no possibility for, setting up an actual physical altar, I have a video where I did like a pop-up altar, but you could set it up however you want. But that page becomes consecrated, it becomes blessed, and you work from that page. You can do something very similar with an ancestor page in your grimoire. And when you want to seek their help, let's say you're not going to do an ancestor altar, it could all be contained in a book. I love that idea, especially for those who you're not out of the witchy closet. Oh, wait, we're not saying anymore. Somebody said the broom closet is like getting too much on. I still haven't figured out another phrase for that. If you're just not telling people publicly you're a witch or you're not able to live your life fully as a witch, yeah, you can do everything in a book. All your altars can be set up in a book. If you really think about it, you can set that up. Yeah, so also it can become a living document, the ancestor pages in your grimoire. This can become a living document, one you add to each year as part of your Samhain rituals. I wanted to make sure I talked about that as well. So you can also add every year a little bit something more. Imagine that, right? And it just becomes this living document and you can journal and all that sort of stuff, like put little notes and things like that. So again, honoring our ancestors at Samhain can be a grounding experience. It can be a rewarding practice in your craft if you let it. It doesn't matter if you've never done anything like this. If you don't know who your ancestors are, if you don't physically know anyone, for various reasons, you can still continue to, you can still do ancestor veneration and call on them for guidance. As we approach Samhain, take time to reflect on how you'd like to connect with your ancestors. And they're always with you, so remember that. They're always with us. This is just an opportune time, but they are always with us. You always can talk to your ancestors. They're always watching. They're always part of it. And think bigger than just the relatives that you know that passed. There's others. There's the ones you don't know, the ancient ones that are watching you. Those are the powerful ones. So think about that when you're doing petitions and things like that, as opposed to just making it about the ones you actually know. And I'm not saying don't work with them. I'm also saying think about the ones you don't. Think about what that can mean, right? How much influence could they possibly give you because they've watched so many lifetimes? They have, tap into that knowledge. That's why I like to connect with the collective of ancestor energy. And I don't necessarily focus on one specific ancestor because I want the totality. I want it all. Call me, I guess I'm a little greedy about that type of stuff. That's how I see it. I know they co-sign it, so that's how they appear to me, as kind of a collective, not just one. So I take it that way. But thank you for joining me today. I am so sorry about the weird YouTube thing. It just wouldn't let me connect to a live after 3 attempts until I came to my phone and now I can connect. But thank you all. Please like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, hit the join button to join Leap Taken membership. It supports the channel. There are some wonderful perks like member-only videos, also deep discounts at my website, leaptaken.com. Please check out my website, leaptaken.com. And lastly, I have a second YouTube channel if you're interested, where I show more vlog style of my cottage witchery practice, and that is called Magical Lifestyle of a Cottage Witch. There's also a link in the description, and I will be back live Friday for my witchy review. We're going to be talking dark fantasy novel there, and then I will be back again live next Wednesday with another countdown to Samhain live video. I thank you all. Have a good day. Do some ancestor veneration, do a little something. If you don't do anything, just open up a book and start making some pages. All right, bye.